The news from Ukraine's front lines is grim, painting a picture of relentless suffering and devastation that grows darker with each passing day. Russia's military machine, once considered a juggernaut, is unraveling at a shocking pace, leaving behind a trail of shattered vehicles and abandoned dreams. Headlines on January 30, 2026, speak of catastrophic losses and a system at its breaking point. The world's media can barely keep up with the scale of the disaster unfolding. The Russian army, once feared across continents, is now bleeding out in the mud and snow of eastern Ukraine. The harsh winter only deepens the misery, turning every trench into a frozen grave. Every day, the numbers worsen. Reports confirm the same grim reality. Putin's war has become a meat grinder for his own soldiers, grinding down morale and hope with every casualty. This isn't just about lost territory, it's about a lost generation. The Russian military is gasping for air, its vital signs failing as young men are sent to the front with little training and even less support. Moscow's high command keeps demanding advances, sending wave after wave of poorly trained men into the jaws of a well-prepared Ukrainian defense. The orders are relentless, the results always the same: devastation. These aren't strategic maneuvers, they're desperate suicidal charges. Soldiers on the ground see the futility. They feel abandoned by indifferent leaders, left to fight and die for objectives that seem meaningless. The result, a force that's not just battered, but spiritually broken, a ghost of the army that invaded Ukraine years ago. The will to fight is fading, replaced by exhaustion and despair. The front lines are now chaotic zones of death, where survival is measured in hours. Russia's ability to sustain its operations is crumbling. Logistics are in tatters, medical support is almost non-existent, and supplies rarely reach those who need them most. For the average Russian soldier, the war is a brutal equation: advance and die, or retreat and face punishment. There is no safe path, only impossible choices and constant fear. This is the systematic dismantling of a modern army, not by one decisive battle, but by 1,000 daily cuts. Each failed assault, each lost vehicle, each fallen comrade chips away at what remains. Each drone strike, each failed assault, adds to the toll. The skies are filled with the constant threat of Ukrainian drones, making every movement a gamble with death. The Kremlin tries to hide the truth, but it leaks out, in death notices, in hushed conversations, in numbers too large to conceal. Grief and anxiety ripple through Russian society, impossible to suppress. The Russian military isn't just losing a war, it's losing its very essence. The collapse is rapid, violent, and undeniable, leaving scars that will last for generations. The myth of Russian military might is being shattered in real time. What remains is a force on its deathbed, barely able to function, its reputation in ruins. The world is witnessing the disintegration of a once formidable army. The echoes of its collapse will be felt far beyond the battlefield, reshaping the future of Russia and the world. The numbers tell the story, numbers so staggering they almost defy belief. By early 2026, over 500,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in action, a figure that continues to climb with each passing month. This is a level of carnage not seen in generations, 30 times the Soviet losses in Afghanistan, all compressed into just a few years of relentless conflict. Each number is not just a statistic, but a life cut short, a family shattered, a future erased. Unlike World War II, this is a war of choice, not of national survival, making the losses even more toxic, more difficult for society to accept or justify. The dead are not martyrs, they're victims of a disastrous political miscalculation, casualties of decisions made far from the front lines. The wounded number over 1.5 million, many with life-altering injuries, lost limbs, severe burns, and deep psychological trauma that may never heal. Russia is ill-equipped to care for them. Hospitals are overwhelmed and rehabilitation is often inadequate. These men and women become living reminders of the war's true cost. This army of wounded veterans will haunt Russia for decades, a burden the Kremlin cannot ignore, no matter how hard it tries. The professional core of the Russian army is gone, replaced by poorly trained conscripts and convicts, many of whom are unprepared for the horrors they face. New soldiers last only days or hours before becoming another statistic, another name on a growing list of the lost. Trading lives for meters of ground is burning through Russia's future, squandering the potential of an entire generation. The Kremlin is sacrificing a generation to salvage a failing war, ignoring the pleas of grieving families and a restless public. The consequences will echo for decades, reshaping Russian society and leaving scars that may never fully heal. Drones define this war. For Russian soldiers, the sky is a source of terror. Ukraine has turned cheap FPV drones into precision weapons, hunting soldiers in trenches and destroying tanks. The psychological impact is immense. Nowhere is safe, and the buzz of a drone means death is near. Russia's mechanized tactics are obsolete. Tanks and armored vehicles are easy prey. Infantry is forced to advance on foot, exposed in open fields. Drones provide Ukraine with real-time surveillance, making surprise impossible for Russia. Every Russian movement is spotted and targeted. Russia's attempts to counter with electronic warfare and its own drones have lagged behind. The technological gap is devastating. Ukrainian forces strike with precision, while Russians are left blind. Drone superiority is a key reason Russia's assaults are so costly and ineffective. The sky itself has become a weapon against them. In most wars, 3 or 4 soldiers are wounded for every one killed. In Ukraine, Russia's ratio is closer to 1 to 1, or worse. This means wounded soldiers are dying at an alarming rate, revealing a total breakdown in medical care. Mobilized troops have little training and outdated first aid kits. The critical golden hour after injury is almost always lost. Evacuation is nearly impossible. Drones target any rescue attempt. Wounded are often abandoned, left to die in trenches. Field hospitals are overwhelmed, undersupplied, and frequently targeted by Ukrainian strikes. The entire medical system is collapsing. This catastrophic kill-to-wound ratio is a symptom of a larger systemic failure. Russia's army cannot protect its own. It treats soldiers as disposable. For a wounded Russian soldier, survival is a desperate gamble. Evacuation from the trenches is deadly. Drones and thermal imaging make movement almost impossible. When evacuation happens, it's chaotic. Wounded are piled into any available vehicle, regardless of injury. Many die on the way, lacking basic medical care. Field hospitals are overwhelmed, unsanitary, and short on everything: blood, antibiotics, painkillers. Surgeons perform amputations with minimal anesthesia and supplies. Soldiers wait days for treatment. Infection and death are rampant. The system is a throwback to 19th century medicine, not what the Kremlin promised. Even stabilized soldiers face delays reaching proper hospitals, as infrastructure is destroyed and transport is targeted. Survivable injuries often become fatal. Russian soldiers are dying not just from Ukrainian weapons, but from their own army's neglect. The statistics come alive in the voices of Russian soldiers and civilians, transforming cold numbers into stories of heartbreak and fear. Intercepted calls reveal a landscape of fear and hopelessness. "We are just meat here," one soldier confides to his mother, his voice trembling with exhaustion and dread. "They send us forward, and we die." The commanders, far removed from the mud and blood, seem distant and indifferent, issuing orders from behind safe lines. Half of some units are gone in just a matter of days, their absence haunting the empty bunks and silent barracks. Surrendered soldiers describe utter chaos: no food, no water, no ammunition. Drunken officers stumble through the trenches, sending men on what they call suicide missions. Many now prefer surrender to certain death, choosing captivity over the hopelessness of the front. These are not the words of a motivated army. They're the voices of men pushed far beyond their limits, their faces etched with fatigue and despair. In occupied cities, hospitals overflow with wounded soldiers, their groans filling the air, the medical staff overwhelmed and exhausted. Civilians, some elderly and frail, are denied care to make room for the endless stream of casualties, forced to wait in hallways or turned away entirely. Local residents witness young, frightened soldiers desperately trying to avoid the front, sometimes resorting to bribing officers just to stay away from the carnage. Every night, trucks roll in, bringing back bodies under the cover of darkness, the grim procession a nightly ritual. The army is poorly led, poorly supplied, and morale is catastrophic. Supplies run short, tempers flare, and frustration grows with each passing day. Soldiers no longer believe in the cause or trust their commanders. Arguments and distrust simmer just beneath the surface. Their only motivation now is survival, clinging to memories of home, to the hope of seeing loved ones again. This psychological collapse is as devastating as physical losses, leaving men hollowed out and broken. An army that has lost its will to fight cannot be effective. The will to resist simply evaporates. The voices from the front warn of a military structure rotting from within, its foundations crumbling under the weight of despair. The myth of Russian military strength is being destroyed not by enemy fire, but by its own soldiers' despair and disillusionment. The war's true cost is measured in broken spirits as much as in bodies, in the silent grief of families and the haunted eyes of survivors. The Kremlin cannot hide this reality, no matter how tightly it controls the news or censors the truth. The collapse is visible to all who listen, to anyone willing to hear the pain behind the words. The Russian army is unraveling from the inside out, its fabric torn by fear, mistrust, and loss. The end is no longer a question of if, but when. The unraveling is now impossible to ignore, and the consequences will echo for generations. Russia's army is hollowed out. On paper, it's large, but the experience core is gone. Years of institutional knowledge have been lost in less than 4 years. The Kremlin fills gaps with mobilized civilians, not professionals. These new soldiers lack skills, discipline, and resilience. Casualty rates are sky high. Units are made up of strangers, led by inexperienced officers. Complex weapons go unused or break down. Basic tactics fail. The non-commissioned officer corps is virtually gone, leaving no bridge between officers and enlisted men. The result? A brittle, inflexible force prone to panic. The demographic impact, hundreds of thousands dead, millions wounded or fled, will haunt Russia for generations. This is not a foundation for a modern army, but a recipe for collapse. The Kremlin's answer to disaster is more attrition, throwing bodies at the front, hoping to outlast Ukraine. But this gamble is failing. Modern warfare rewards technology and tactics, not sheer numbers. Ukraine uses drones and precision weapons to inflict disproportionate losses. For every Ukrainian lost, several Russians die, a loss ratio Russia cannot sustain. The economic and social costs are crushing. The war drains Russia's budget and workforce. Grief and anger simmer beneath the surface, threatening the social contract. Putin believed Ukraine and the West would break first. The opposite has happened. Ukrainian resolve has hardened, and Western support remains strong. Putin is trapped. Ending the war risks his power. Continuing it destroys his army and country. The meat grinder is consuming Russia's future. Russia cannot sustain these losses. The trajectory is collapse, not victory. Ukraine's strategy, leveraging technology and tactics, makes the war too costly for Moscow. Every meter of ground costs Russia dearly. Ukraine has turned Russia's manpower into a weakness, not a strength. The Russian army is being destroyed piece by piece faster than it can be rebuilt. The evidence is everywhere. Casualty numbers, kill-to-wound ratios, desperate soldiers' voices. The myth of Russian military might is shattered. What remains is a hollow force, stumbling toward defeat. Ukraine's resilience and smart warfare have made the cost unbearable for Moscow. The clock is ticking, not toward Russian victory, but toward the end of Putin's military on the world stage.